Hello, everyone. Today I have Andaleeb Wajid. So, Andaleeb, you're really an inspiration for many aspiring writers. Your Insta bio is, however, very modest and humble. It says that I'm just a girl sitting in front of my laptop writing a book. But I know that there is much more than that, which happens actually when you sit in front of your laptop. You create these worlds, these beautiful worlds, these characters, and so much of your imagination comes to life with these books that you have written. So thank you so much for being here, and I'm really excited to talk to you.
Thank you for having me here, Priyanka. It's a pleasure. I'm excited to be here on this. Happy to talk to you about my books, my writing, whatever you want to know.
Great. So Andalip, Goodreads mentions that you have 60 books listed there, like 6060. And I don't know
Okay.
how old you are. You look fairly young. And this is quite a number, you know. I mean,
So I
how
think
did you
there's a
achieve this?
mistake.
How did you achieve this?
So I'll first clarify. I think there's a mistake. It's not
Okay.
60. It's 40 published books. But I
Okay.
think Goodreads probably has compiled a couple of maybe there are two editions.
Okay.
Maybe it's that's the sort of thing that they've done. So I don't know how it's 60,
But still,
but
Andalip, it is 40. And I don't know if you're
yeah,
already 40 years old, but
I'm
it is 40.
45.
Okay, so
I'm
still it is
45.
40 books. So that's also a good number. So tell us,
Yeah.
how did you achieve it? How and
So
what it took from you? I'm sure a lot of discipline, a lot of inspiration. So tell us, how did you achieve
discipline,
this?
yes. Discipline, yes. And also, I don't think when I started writing, I actually thought I would write even four books. I was just writing, I wrote that one book, my first novel. It took me 2 years to write it because I was not taking my writing seriously enough. For me, the writing itself was something like an adventure, So when I would sit down at my laptop, it was an adventure. And, in the life of a regular Indian woman or any woman, I would say, not just Indian, there isn't much time for adventure. So, you have so many responsibilities. And my children were small then. And so, whatever little time I got, I would sit before the laptop, then I would write a story. It would be like sometimes, months would pass before I would come back to it. And I still didn't know how it was going to end. And then finally, I ended it, and then I didn't know what to call it. And then after all that, it took me 3 years to find a publisher. So for me, I wasn't really thinking that, I wanted writing to be my career so badly, but I didn't know if I had what it took. I didn't know whether I would be able to write anymore, whether there were any more stories left in me. So when that first novel was published and it started getting I would say, like it started getting readers. It kind of spurred me on to do something more. And then I kind of wrote the next novel in 3 months. So for me, that was like a huge accomplishment. I said, from 2 years, I finished in 3 months. So it kind of started getting easier as I started writing, as I started putting down my, you know, making the books happen. So I really I never thought about having this number out there. So in fact, I think that number kind of got compounded when I started self-publishing, because self-publishing is not bound by any publishing rules, right?
Hmm.
So you publish how many ever you want. So if in 2023 I say I publish, maybe if I want to, I'm not going to, but if I want to, if I publish 10, so that 40 becomes 50.
Hmm.
So and so it all, I think some of it, the number really jumped up because of self-publishing. But before that also, I had 20 books published with publishers.
Hmm.
So with traditional publishers like Penguin, in fact, I think I've published the highest with them, which is around 6 books. And then I published with Speaking Tiger, with Bloomsbury, now with Westland, with so it's been an interesting journey. And I haven't really given much thought to it. For me, the only thing that I want to do is to write, to be able to write, and to get my writing, my books across to readers who seem to enjoy it. And I want to entertain people with my books. So that's
Great.
the only thing. So I haven't really thought so much about anything else.
Okay, but I'm still going to ask you this. How
Yeah.
much time do you write in a day? Do you have some kind of targets in terms of word count,
So
or does it just gush out of you? Like if the story is there, words are just gushing out of you.
no, actually, so what happens is when I decide to write a book, I make extensive notes. I
Hmm.
have, so even though I'm at my mother's house, I have my all my notebooks with me, which are like, so I'll just show you. See, these are all my
Wow.
some of my notebooks. I have a drawer full of them back home. So these are some of my notebooks. So I make extensive notes in them, which is just me talking to myself. It's like stream
Hmm.
of consciousness, talking about what this character is going to do, who are the people in this book, what are the
Hmm.
events. So that kind of I put it all down before I start writing, and then when I get down to writing, for me it's like a job that I enjoy doing very much. So I sit down like in the morning, say 9, 10 o'clock. That's like my, so everyone who has a job, they have a 9 to 5 or a 10
Hmm.
to 6, whatever. So I sit down, and of course I don't sit till 5, but for me that starting point is important. At 9, I
Important.
sit down, or 10, I sit down. I write maybe like a chapter, and I take a break. So I like tell myself, if I finish this chapter. So, the problem with finishing and all is not so much about not being able to write, but the physical limitations sometimes, that come
The
from
act of
writing too
sitting
much.
and writing, actually.
No, the actual physical writing, the
Writing.
shoulder pain, the neck pain.
Okay.
So those, I don't want to exacerbate that. So
Correct.
I have a limit for myself. So
Hmm.
if I've written like 1 or 2 chapters, and my body, I just listen to my body. The
Hmm.
moment I start typing gibberish, I know that it's done for me. I'm done for the day. So I just decide not to write anymore, and I tell myself, okay, it's time to take a break. So it's a sort of a
Organic.
disciplined,
Yeah.
approach. I don't kind of subscribe to the whole thing that you need to be like in the mood. Or I feel like writing for me is a job. So
Hmm.
it's a calling, but it's also a job.
Hmm.
So I feel like if I want to, and it's something I enjoy doing, so I'm
Hmm.
grateful for that. And I feel I'm grateful for the privilege to be able to write and to make a
Correct.
living out of writing.
Great. So, Andaleeb, you said that writing book was not your plan, I mean, initially, and you never thought you'd be a full-time writer. When did you actually start writing and getting published and make it your full-time job? Was it like 5 years ago,
So,
10 years ago?
no,
When
no,
did it
no,
happen?
no. So the thing is that I always wanted to tell stories. From the time I was small, I wanted to tell stories. And writing for me became this sort of aspiration when I was 17, 18, because I, come from a very conservative family where, you don't have any options for careers. I mean, back then at least, now I think girls are much more assertive. So in that crop of women who were getting married, having babies, I kind of wanted to do something. And
Hmm.
I felt that, if I write books, I'm not like, I think the issue was they have this somewhat, not
Time
somewhat,
flexibility.
no, quite patriarchal concept of,
Hmm.
a woman stepping out of the
Hmm.
house to earn money, sort of thing. So
Okay.
for me, I wasn't concerned with that. I think it's great to earn money, but I also was not sure. I was very young then, so I wasn't sure whether whether I wanted to do it. And I had a small baby. So I felt like writing was something that I could do within the confines of my own situation. So I could write from wherever I was. I was not upsetting any apple carts. I was
Hmm.
not like openly rebelling against anything. I didn't have anything to rebel. I was leading a more or less happy-go-lucky life, So,
Hmm.
but there was always this yearning to do something more, to always, to fulfill that ambition I had as a child to, tell stories. And I felt like, writing was the way for me to do it. So I started writing short stories. I wrote short stories for children
Hmm.
initially, and which were published in Deccan Herald. Used to have this supplement called Open
Hmm.
Sesame. So I
Okay.
grew up reading it, and then I
Hmm.
started writing for it. And
Wow.
I wrote around 40, 50 short stories over a period of some 7, 8 years. Then I
Hmm.
moved to writing fiction for adults. And in 2005, a collection of short stories was published by a local publisher called Unison. and it's called Curtain Stories by 9 Women or something. So it featured like 4 stories each. So my book was the titular. My story was one of
Was
the
the title for the book.
titular thing. Yeah, Curtains. So I had 4 stories in that, and I was still not happy. Obviously, I felt very thrilled to see my name on the cover, but it was a small thing along with all these others, and I wanted to. I felt I was extremely daunted by the idea of writing a novel and all that, But quite a few people helped, in the sense, mentors, people who read, and I wrote that first novel. It's called Kite Strings. It's on Amazon on Kindle Unlimited also. And it took me a very long time to find a publisher. And
I think that just re-emphasizes the fact that it takes a lot of time to get a publisher for your first book.
So yeah, it took, and it was a very different. The publishing landscape was very different back then. So
Yes.
it wasn't so easy to
Easy.
approach a publisher.
Absolutely.
Today, publishers, you can find them on social media. Back then,
Correct.
they were a very mysterious and unknowable
Closed
entity.
doors. Yeah.
Yeah. So
True.
so my first novel was published in 2009. So I've been
Okay.
writing and publishing since 2009, which is like 14 years now.
Wow.
And so I've been, after that first book came out, it kind of became easier for me to write, but not
Got it.
so easy for me to publish.
Yes.
Because, publishing doors didn't open magically. It was not like, I made a big splash or anything. So it took a lot of time, and it took a lot of consistent hard work. There were a lot of times when I thought that I should just give up, because for me, when I was writing, I will be very honest about this. I was not writing just for the joy of writing. I wanted to write, and I wanted to also be a famous writer, and I wanted to be a rich writer.
I love it when you say that. I wanted to be a
Yeah, so
famous writer. Why not? Yes.
yeah. So it was one of my ambitions. It was one of the things that drew me to writing, is to have people know me as a writer. And as a good writer, not as a bad writer, hopefully. So I felt like this.
But
is
it
not
is said,
going to be
Andaleeb, you cannot write 20 bad books. So you have already crossed that threshold. There
I
is
don't
probably
know.
nobody in the world who has written more than 20 bad books, because if you have survived 20 books, you definitely
Yeah.
are an accomplished writer. Tell me a little bit about your favorite genre of writing, which is romance, I guess. And what is it so specific about this genre that keeps you going and is so is so useful for you, or is a genre that you have stuck with? Have you thought about experimenting, or is it something that you think is my game and I'm going to ace it?
So, to be very honest, romance is a genre that I enjoy writing and I enjoy reading, and I find
Hmm.
it relatively easy. But my favorite genre as a writer would be horror.
Okay.
I really enjoy writing horror because I think women especially excel at writing horror. We kind of look, we find all the
Hmm.
agency that we are denied in our lives somehow, in killing people on the page, on screen, and giving. And I really enjoy writing horror, but I also find it extremely challenging at the same time, because it's because romance, I would say, is like a universal feeling. And
Hmm.
the concept, when two people meet and there are sparks and there's chemistry and love eventually follows, it more or less is the same
Hmm.
throughout,
Hmm.
different templates. But horror is not the same, because what, it's very subjective.
Hmm.
So what scares me might not scare you. What you
Hmm.
might get scared by, I might laugh at it. So for me to find that thing that universally scares people is something I'm still, like, trying to find while I'm writing. So, and especially when I'm writing romance, so much romance, I write because it's popular, it's because what people want, it's because it's what sells, especially on KDP, which is where I do a lot of my publishing. Romance really sells, and I also like
Comes
bringing new
naturally to
forms of
you, no?
romance.
Yeah.
Yes, no, I like bringing romance to readers which they have not read before, in the sense, relatable romances about people like you and I. And I sometimes set these romances in my community, which also makes it very attractive to readers, who have very stereotyped stereotypical notion about what Muslim women's lives are all about. So that's not like my aim or something, I'm just writing, I'm having fun. For me especially, it's important to have fun. And while this is happening, I'm also writing stories about these women who know what they want, who aren't afraid of getting what they want, going after it. So all these things are like, so romance has given me all this, but it's horror which kind of
It's your
holds my
aspiration.
thing. Yeah. So I've written horror actually. I've
Okay.
published four horror novels so far. In fact, one was published with Penguin in 2018. It's called House of Screams.
Okay.
So that and two were published on Juggernaut, but I have taken the rights back, and I will. One of these is a novella which I've self-published on KDP, and one I'll bring out later this year. The other one. So horror is like one of the genres that
You want to
it hasn't
explore.
eluded me, but I love it because it's challenging. And yeah, so the genre that I would love to write probably one day is crime fiction,
Okay.
but I don't, it's accessible enough for me. As in, I really don't see myself, actually doing the hard work that's required to write crime fiction, and that sort of in-person research is, I think, I feel it's like beyond me at the moment. But never say
True.
no. Who knows? Yeah.
Great. Let's talk about your latest three-part romance novel. I mean,
Yes.
we will talk about
I
its
have
very
them here.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yes, we'll talk about its very interesting publishing journey, a little
Yeah.
unique one that I have heard of. But let's talk about this book in itself, like the
Okay.
storyline, what are the characters? I think
Happy
this is
to.
your
Happy
favorite
to.
part, right?
So actually, to be very honest, I hate talking about my books. Okay, in the sense, I'm like, if I have to talk so much, I
Come
wouldn't
on,
have
you want
written
to
the
become a
book.
popular, you want to become a famous writer. You can't be saying these
No, no,
conflicting
no,
things.
no, no. What I'm saying is that, if I was like, if I want to talk about the book, I wouldn't have written it. Just go and read it.
Okay, show it to
So
our
yeah.
audience,
So
and
this
yes, we would
this is
love
the
to.
first book. This is the first book. So the idea for this actually came to me some 7 years ago, probably. So I was a guest at an event, and I felt very out of place at that event, because these were really, really super rich people, and I was like looking at everything as a sort of social experiment, and that the ideas just slammed into my head. I mean, if I, for one afternoon, if I find it so strange and so surreal to be here with these people,
Hmm,
what would someone who gets married into a family like this, how would a
hmm,
girl like that, deal with this sudden change? And
interesting.
that's where the idea was born, I would say, with the germ of the idea.
Hmm.
So I kind of worked on it, I developed it, and then eventually what happened was I came up with these three books. Um, the first is One Way to Love, the second is Loving You Twice, and the third is Three Times Lucky.
And together they are called the Jasmine Villa series
Yes.
because she
So
gets
together they
married
call it
into
Jasmine
a
Villa.
family.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So Jasmine Villa is the girls have, so they are three sisters, and they live with their father in this rundown old bungalow, sort of very, smallish, not even a huge. It's not. It's wrong to call it a bungalow. It's a small house, in a somewhat affluent part of Bangalore, actually, where the father was not able to build the house into the villa that he wanted. So when he bought it, the land was under dispute. The house was under dispute, and he didn't realize, which is why he got it for so cheap. And he couldn't build anything. And all his money eventually goes into taking care of his ailing wife who has cancer, and she dies when the girls are relatively young. I think when they're around 15, 14, and 13, respectively. So, so it's like a tired old house. There's a jasmine plant there, which kind of gives this whole place that perfume of jasmine, which is kind of envelops the whole the series, I would say. And the first book is where this girl Tehzeeb, so she gets married into this rich family, and it's an arranged marriage, but she and Ayub, her husband, they do fall in love with each other even before they get married. And it's her trying to understand her position in that house, and her need to assert herself and be someone other than just Mrs. Ayub Ahmed or whatever.
Hmm.
So each of these girls are, they are independent in a certain way. It's more like a quiet revolution. It's not like each of them is rebellious or anything.
Hmm.
um, so in each book you get a glimpse of the other sister, so
Hmm.
and her potential love interest. So in
Hmm.
this book we're introduced to Anna and Lukman is Ayub's one of his best friends. So
Hmm.
that's their story here in this book.
Okay.
This is one of my favorite ones of all three, actually, because it's really full of melodrama. And so Anna and Lukman have met each other at Tehzeeb and Ayub's wedding, but they've also met a couple of other times, and there has been that sort of attraction, but they spend flights sitting next to each other purely by
Hmm.
chance. And Anna kind of falls in love with him. He also falls in love with her, but they don't really act on it. And then he's flying somewhere else, and she gets off at the first destination. And when she goes back, her father has got a proposal for her for Lukman's older brother, who's
Hmm.
Farhan. And she kind of thinks that, and he said yes because he likes the boy. He thinks he's very sorted and respectable family, and he said yes. So Anna is like, I fell in love with the second brother, and you said yes to the older brother, and so a lot of stuff. And then that's just the beginning of it. There's a lot more masala happening in this, so much. I had a lot of fun writing this one. This is my favorite. And this is the third one, the youngest sister.
3 times lucky.
She's, yeah, 3 times lucky. And this is the story of Athiya. So she is like this fiery, foul-mouthed character who's like a fan favorite. A lot of my readers love her because she's not afraid of calling a spade, and so um, she gets married to Lukman's older brother, Farhan, and there's this marriage of convenience, and this sort of stuff happens to like he kind of loves her. He falls in love with her, but so there's this age gap. He's like, he thinks he's much older than her, but then he marries her to kind of save her from the situation, and then they fall in love. And it's so all three books they're all very closely tied together. But if you were to read one out of the order also, it's fine. I
Hmm.
think you will eventually understand, and it will only spur you to go and read the one that you missed.
Hmm.
So
Great. It's very interesting, and I wonder how you get ideas for all these women. How many conversations you must be eavesdropping in public places, I'm imagining, because a lot of times some of the characters are actually living around us, maybe your friends or family or relatives, I don't know. But
I try not to too
I
much.
hope you
I
have
try
people
not to
to
do.
answer to.
No, so I'm a very observant person. I think all
Yes,
writers are. You
absolutely. You
have
have
to
to
be
be.
observant. You have to kind of see things and let it kind of sink in. And you're not going to use it immediately. But
Immediately.
eventually, while you're writing something somewhere, something will pop up.
It'll
And it kind of just completes the story perfectly. So certain characteristics. There's an aunt who's a very annoying person. So she's not based on any particular aunt, but everyone can kind of relate to her as,
relate to
oh
an
God,
aunt
we
like
have
that.
we have an
Yes,
aunt like this in our house. So
absolutely, absolutely.
yeah.
So while you have the water, I will just tell our viewers that so Andaleeb had a very interesting journey of publishing this particular series, and I found it interesting because she actually had self-published it, and the publishers wanted to take it and print it, and that must have been a very a lucky day. I mean, a great day for you when you got this news, right? It must be surprising to an extent. Must be a happy surprise. How did you feel?
Yeah. So I think so when you're the thing is that I have been published with publishers before.
Hmm.
So I think it kind of worked in my favor in the sense that I was, uh, relatively better known than I would say if I were only self-published. But
Hmm.
I think it's also every self-published author's sort of
Dilemma. Hmm.
aspiration or
Okay.
dream to have a traditional
Traditional.
publisher
Yeah.
find you, discover you, which is
Yes.
how all these like 50 Shades of Grey was
Hmm.
picked up, was self-published and then was picked up by I think Random House back
Hmm.
in 2010 or whatever. So,
Hmm.
and that's just one example. There's several others, So I think it's kind of win-win for publishers and authors because publishers are banking their money on a series that is already done relatively well. But now
Hmm.
they're bringing it out to a wider audience. So
Hmm.
I was absolutely thrilled. So this is actually Jasmine Villa was my first series, which I would say it was my first proper connected romance series.
Romance.
So I had self-published before this for a couple of books, and I was still testing the waters. I wasn't sure I wanted to do this
Connected.
like properly.
Hmm.
No, I also was I was like jumping into this
Hmm.
um, and I wasn't sure whether this was the right thing to do, because self-publishing has this sort of stigma attached to it, where
Correct.
people assume that you self-published because you couldn't find a publisher.
Fine.
So I never took this book to a publisher.
Hmm.
From the time I wrote it, my intention was to self-publish it and to bring it out to my readers.
Hmm.
And those who want to read, they will find a way to read it, which is what I
Hmm.
thought.
Hmm.
And so this series did relatively well, and it was kind of gave me the confidence to start writing more connected series, more books like this, and to build that backlist of
Yes.
books, which is really important, for many
Correct.
reasons. So
Correct.
when I got approached last year by Westland and they wanted to publish this, I was absolutely thrilled because I think so. When your book is taken, when from a self-publishing platform, there is a limited audience in India for people who read
Hmm.
on ebooks, and then it's taken to a wider audience where more people read it, more people get to see it, and also with this amazing covers.
Covers.
The covers are just so brilliant, beautiful.
Because they are
So
experts, no? They know the trade,
yeah,
they know how it
yeah.
works.
So yeah, and how they kind of the books just stand out in bookstores, bookshelves. So
Yes.
I've overall absolutely been thrilled by
Hmm.
the way it's all done. It's been a dream so far. So um,
So many,
it's
many congratulations for that. And I
thank
really look
you,
forward to more books. I'm sure you will
thank
cross
you.
that century mark very soon.
I hope so.
And I
Yeah,
I wish that you receive all the love and adoration of your readers like you have continued to receive. And thank you so much,
thank you so
Andaleeb.
much.
Thank you so much for
Thank
talking
you,
to us.
Priyanka. It was a pleasure. Yeah,
Thank you. Have a nice day.
yeah.